What's up guys, I'm the Unnamed review guy, and a few weeks ago I told you I was going to rock LG's latest flagship, the LG V60, for at least a week to tell you guys everything you need to know about this device. Here we are 3 weeks later, and this is my full review of the LG V60 ThinQ 5G UW. While this video isn't sponsored by LG, the V60 I have been using for the past week was sent over by them as a review unit, but like always, all opinions in this video are my own. So it's always complicated to review LG devices because of how terrible their name recognition is in the United States. Yes, almost everyone knows LG and probably has one of their appliances or TVs in their house, but when it comes to phones, people either remember the faults of the G4 era or their budget LG that they compared way too much to their dream iPhone to see its value for price. I put this quite well on a TikTok, which if you don't follow me on the platform, you're totally missing out. Basically, if I was to follow this commenter's mindset on how to review phones or how to think about a brand, I wouldn't be able to recommend phones from any of these brands, and basically from any brand, because they had a problem at one point with some of their phones. So yeah, this way of thinking is not a good one. I know LG may not have the flashiest hardware, the next show-stopping feature, but something LG does do very well is making a very well-rounded smartphone that's good for everyone. Let's run down some of the basic specs of this thing. The LG V60 has a Snapdragon 865 processor with 128GB of storage, with the option to expand it via a micro SD card slot, and 8GB of RAM. These are pretty standard when it comes to flagship phones. I actually wish there was an option for 256GB or 512GB, but 128GB with expandable storage should be fine for many people. The display is a 6.8-inch POLED display capable of a resolution of 1080 by 2460. Before I talk about the display, I do need to point out how huge this thing is. Like, it's massive in comparison to other phones, including the Note 10 Plus. This phone just feels larger. The giant display is covered in Gorilla Glass 5, which should protect it from drops of around 5 feet or so. Like most flagship phones, this is HDR10 Plus compatible, and like most Android devices, it does feature a under-display fingerprint sensor, which has not been the fastest as some are, but it's also not the slowest, so I'm not upset with this one. Moving on to the cameras on this device, it features an array of 4 sensors, including a 64-megapixel standard wide-angle camera, a 13-megapixel ultra-wide-angle camera, and a 0.3-megapixel depth sensor. Together, these cameras shoot some great-looking photos. I'll put some examples that I've taken in the past few weeks here so you can form your own opinions on this device's camera. In my opinion, they're sometimes oversaturated, but since this is a personal opinion, you might not agree with that. So just take a look at the photos and form your own opinions on that. The front camera is a 10-megapixel standard wide-angle lens, which takes decent photos, as you would expect from a front-facing camera. The cool thing about the rear camera on this device is that it's capable of shooting in 8K. This is something we have seen on just a few flagship phones now, so it's nice to see LG adopting it too. You may not be able to see a huge difference yourself in quality between 8K and 4K, especially since the display on this phone is not an 8K display, but higher resolution will come in handy if you're trying to do things like zooming in on a subject in a video, or if you're trying to grab still photos from a video. LG has one of the best pro modes, which they call manual camera, along with a manual video option for DSLR-like options on your phone. LG has always been the best at this in my opinion, and they've always had the best features. LG certainly hasn't stopped implementing interesting features into its phone cameras either. The V60 comes with 2 features that have particularly caught my eye. One is ASMR recording, which amplifies the sound of a subject, and the other is voice bokeh, which reduces the ambient noise to focus on voice. To power this awesome camera, you get a 5,000 mAh battery, which when you use 5G may be pretty standard, but since you probably won't be using 5G anytime soon, this battery is killer. It ends up being one of the longest lasting batteries that I've used in a smartphone. I was able to get pretty much 2 days of usage on this phone with my average daily usage. That's nothing to laugh at considering this has a huge POLED display on it. Other things to appreciate on the V60 include the headphone jack, with its quad DAC, is the best sounding headphone jack you'll ever pick up on phone nowadays. Well, I mean, that doesn't sound too crazy considering that it's the last flagship to have a headphone jack. Maybe better to say it's the best sounding headphone jack compared to most phones when they had one. Anyway, the audio is really good when you use this jack, which is expected from LG because after many years of audio that sounded great with the quad DAC, it's exactly what we expect from them. The design, while being rather similar to most of the recent LG's V series phones, is one of the best out of any of them. This phone still manages to be subtle while also being premium. Also, there's no giant camera square on this one, which may be a relief to some people. My unit, which is a Verizon UW model, does have the Verizon 5G logo, but the majority of V60 models have no carrier logos on the phone, which is nice. The phone is thicker than many, which has a lot to do with the battery and 5G antennas, but if you are not turned off by the size of the display, you probably won't be by the thickness of this device. It does include a nice curved edge on the back to keep it very comfortable in your hand. Over the past 3 weeks, I've noticed two things that I didn't like about LG's software. One was the notification panel, and the other was spell check. I'll just leave this clip here for you guys to understand what I mean about this. Now you probably noticed I have not mentioned a word about this phone being 5G compatible in this review. Sure, I've hinted at it a few times, but I've not actually talked about it, and that's because I seriously don't think it's necessary. If you don't expect to buy another phone for like 4 more years, maybe going with a 5G phone now is a good way to future-proof your device, but for the average consumer, it's just not going to make a difference quite yet, since 5G service is still very limited across the United States. I wish LG had come out with a slightly cheaper 4G model, especially for Verizon, whose V60 has suffered from the high cost of millimeter wave antennas in order to connect to Verizon's 5G network. What's the cost, you may ask? Well, this one can only be purchased through your carrier, mainly because of the different versions of 5G that are used for each. For example, the Verizon one has millimeter wave antennas to connect with their ultra-fast but ultra-limited millimeter wave network. The T-Mobile one, on the other hand, has sub-6 antennas to connect with T-Mobile's mid-band 5G network. While this network is much more widely available, it is also very much slower than the millimeter wave network. The T-Mobile version retails for $7.99 or $8.99 with a dual screen case accessory, which I will talk about more in a separate video. The AT&T model will cost you $9.99. This is just for the phone though, no dual screen accessory, but it is offered many times for free with purchase. And the Verizon model will cost you $9.49. No dual screen like the AT&T model, but like I just said, it'll be included a lot of times for free with the purchase of the phone. While that $949 price may be eye-watering at first, and believe me, it really is, two things that you should remember with this phone is that it is a flagship, and most flagships are priced at this point, and two, you'll be very likely to find this phone at a much better price. When I first got this phone from LG, Verizon was offering it for $549 with no extra requirements, which is not something they commonly do. Now they are offering a buy one get one free deal, but I do believe you have to create at least one new line on your account to take advantage of this offer. Last but not least, Sprint customers, you're out of luck on this one. Hopefully that T-Mobile merger is completed soon so you can be set free. So in total, the LG V60 is just as competitive of a device as any other US released flagship hitting the market right now, and certainly should not be overlooked because of problems LG has had in prior years. Like always, I'll leave a link in the description so you can check out the phone for yourself. If you're interested in tech or just enjoy some phone reviews, please click that subscribe button and don't forget to leave a like. Thanks for watching.